Welcome back to the Big Trail Show. Alyssa Orange with you. And as always, our Kevin McPherson joining us like he does every week to get us filled in on the latest things happening with the men's basketball team. And Kevin, let's start on the recruiting trail before we kind of dive into what this team looks like after some of the announcements that came this week. But the coaches out there continuing to recruit and, get that hog logo out there in the public.
It's branding, it's being seen, it's also evaluation. It's the first live period in July. And to me, July is the biggest of all the live periods when we look at high school recruiting. John Calipari is the GOAT when it comes to high school recruiting. He just is. And he is front and center for a lot of Razorback recruiting targets. 2025, big focus, but also 2026 and some 2027s. But other staff members across the country, Calipari started out in Phoenix on Thursday, watching a young man that's an in-state kid from the 2026 class, Aiden Chronister, a 4-star 6'7" wing, will play at Sunrise Christian Academy next season in Wichita, but from Rogers. Moving on to the Adidas 3SSB circuit, players like Terrion Burgess out of Benton, a 4-star in the 2025 class with the 17U Arkansas Hawks. Koa Pete, a top 10 5-star in the 2025 class that Arkansas is trying to get on a visit, a 6'8" forward with the Compton Magic. When you look at Malachi Marino, a 6'11", pushing 7-footer for Indiana Elite 17U, also class of 2025, national top 25 player. And then his teammate, Braylon Mullins, a 6'5" guard, picked up an Arkansas offer. Calipari was courtside Friday in South Carolina at the Adidas 3SSB circuit, watching him go 6 of 11 from three, offered him after that. Mullins has now put out, Alyssa, a top 8 schools that he plans to visit. Arkansas is one of them. And we don't have the date yet. I've reached out to him. We'll report that as soon as we get it. But a sharpshooter in that 2025 class, another national top 25. Then we move on to the Nike circuit. Also in North Augusta, South Carolina, Calipari spent the last 2 days there, including today. And you look at the top 10 5-stars he's been watching courtside. Darius Acuff Jr., 6'3" point guard out of Detroit. I don't believe Arkansas is just in the lead for him. I think Arkansas's probably got a private commitment from him. I've reported that recently. Looks like it's going to be Arkansas. I think he'll maybe announce soon after the Peach Jam, which ends after next weekend, which is the second live eval period. Arkansas coaches will be back on the road, but he's one of several top 10 5-stars on the Nike circuit that Calipari's been courtside to see in the 2025 class. AJ DeBonsa, Caleb Wilson, all of these are 6'8", 6'9" guys. When you also add in Cameron Boozer, Arkansas's got offers out to all those young men, trying to get them on campus for visits. Acuff, who I just mentioned, the guard, visited Arkansas in May. But when you look at class of 2026, 2 in-state kids that Calipari has also seen courtside this weekend, 5-star J.J. Andrews out of Little Rock. And then today, Jacob Lanier, both of them 6'6", both of them Central Arkansas kids. A lot of more players that Calipari's been keeping track of. And Arkansas's other assistant coaches, Chin Coleman, Brad Calipari, just among Kenny Payne. They're among the coaches out and about as Arkansas spreads out and hits all these locations for recruiting this weekend, Alyssa.
Yeah, and you got to love that because we knew that Cal was going to come in here and already just have that national attention around the reputation that he's been able to build, but clearly able to recruit well under that Arkansas logo, and it's paying off for him. And look, we didn't have a team when Cal was hired. Arkansas has a team now. They've got a roster. So let's break down a little bit of that dynamic with what this roster looks like heading into this 2024 and 25 season.
Well, we know after the top 9 players, the NIL players, the players that are going to factor into the top 2 rotation, we know after that, we've seen over the last couple of weeks, Arkansas add 5 more players. So 9 and 5, simple math is 14. We know you can only have 13 on scholarship. That means someone's got to be a walk-on. But it's interesting because Calipari talked about that top 8 or 9 and the rest of them just filling out the roster. But I think there might be 2 of the 5 that at some point in time could maybe help Arkansas this upcoming season. But let's go through the names real quick. Once again, Jaden Karaletwa, a 6'6" wing out of Sun Valley, California. He'll be a freshman, class of 2024. When you look at Melo Sanchez, a 6'4" sharpshooter, 40% from 3 in 2 years at Hawaii Pacific, a Division II school, so a transfer. Then Aiden Kelly, a 6'1" guard on the high school level out of Mississippi. And then Kareem Watkins, a 5'8" guard who's been a walk-on the previous 4 years. He's the brother of DJ Wagner. His stepfather is Dewan Wagner, DJ's dad. But Kareem Watkins, a 5'8" guard, again, for the past 4 seasons. So he's a grad at Kentucky, now falling over to Arkansas. And then Arkansas got a commitment from a top 153 star, originally signed with Washington, got out of that after Washington fired its head coach sometime in April. So got out of that, signed national letter of intent, had a host of high major schools recruiting him. But Casimir Chavis, a 6'3" guard out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Arkansas got a commitment from him. So 5 additional players plus the 9. Again, at least one of those has to be a true walk-on, a traditional walk-on, like a Lawson Blake, like a Kate Arbogast. And I'm assuming at least Kareem Watkins will remain in a true walk-on role like he was at Kentucky. And I don't know, but there may be another one that will fit in as a true walk-on, as a traditional walk-on, where 3 of the 5 are on traditional scholarship, which would leave open one more scholarship. I'm speculating there, maybe Aiden Kelly, the 6'1" guard who I just mentioned. The only reason I say that is because you look at all 5 of these additions, Alyssa, they're all backcourt players, wings. Arkansas is a little thin on the front line. I wouldn't be surprised if Calipari figures out a way to leave one more spot open. Remember, we're barely getting into mid-July. School starts back mid-September. 2 more months for another high-level player, maybe someone that could help you somewhere on your front line, falling into your lap in the next 60 days or so.
I got to ask you, Kevin, as we sit here right now talking about the roster that he's put together and we look back to where it was when he was hired, just your overall thoughts on what Cal's been able to do in a short amount of time with this program.
Well, I think the top 9 players are, when you look at the transfer portal recruiting part of it, Arkansas is ranked number 1 by many sources. When you look at the high school part of it, top 5. When you add it all together, it's arguably the best class in the country. John Calipari is the greatest recruiter of all time. The roster doesn't surprise me starting at 0. Of course, Trevor Brazile did a U-turn, got out of the portal, got out of the NBA draft process, and came back to Arkansas. But when I look at this, 1 through 9, I see potential for some kind of all-league recognition for potentially all 9. I don't believe all 9 are going to get that, but just looking at them coming in, you're like, this guy could be all-league in some way, shape, or form, or fashion. Maybe the all-freshman team, maybe the all-defensive team, maybe first or second team all-SEC. It is a strong roster. To put it another way, Alyssa, I would say maybe Arkansas should deserve coming into preseason somewhere ranked between 10th and 15th nationally. Likely I would pick them preseason, and I'm going to do soon here. I'm going to do an SEC power rankings just early, but I would put Arkansas in the conversation for top 3 or 4 teams in now a 16-team brutally tough SEC. The top 8 or 9 teams are going to be potential projections for NCAA tournament. So I think Calipari's roster is outstanding. And by the way, at these live eval events, I'm watching a lot of it on live stream because I'm not out. I was out throughout the spring on the road, not out this weekend. But Calipari, with all these heavy hitters, Bill Self, all these big-time coaches that you could see courtside, I continue to see stragglers come up and introduce themselves to John Calipari or other coaches coming to talk to him. It is incredible. This guy is still the rock star of college basketball. No other coach gets the attention he does out on the road. It's wild to me. This is part of the Arkansas brand now. Eric Musselman moved the needle, and it's kind of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Remember at the end where they blow out the ceiling and fly off? That's what Calipari brand is like. This guy, I mean, he's for real now. We knew that coming to Arkansas. You're starting to see it with that. Talked about the Razorback logo on his chest. You're starting to see some of that stuff play out.
Yeah, I love the reference, and I think you're right. And it's going to be really fun when the season starts in the next couple of months to see what all these pieces come together and look like on the floor. We've gotten some sneak peeks of those practice videos, but I'm excited to see this team in person. Kevin, thank you so much. Like every week, we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alyssa. Good to be with you.
Much more Pig Trail Show after the break.